Okay, first of all, let us see what is a function. A function is a block of code, which means you are going to write some specific part of code apart from the normal code which you write. If I say, let me specifically say, a function is some block of code where you define some specific statements inside your function, like what you are supposed to do, and the following block can be used as many times as required in our program. If I specifically read the line, a function can be called as a section of a program that is written once and can be executed whenever required in a program. Like if you just see the example, you just understand the difference between a function and the normal program lines you write. You'll just see before you have already written a program for function, and Sanath is also aware of what functions are. Let me just highlight how to define these functions. Like first, when you are defining function, what you need to do is you need to use a def parameter. Here def is defined as function. I said definition. Def refers to definition. Whenever you are creating a function, you need to start with def keyword. It means definition. And next you need to start the function with a function name. If you just observe here, I'm going to start my function with def keyword and giving it's a name called def function. 1 minute. He is asking that will I take class now? A function name is uniquely identified. What is this? A function name to uniquely identify the function. What he's saying is we need to name our function so that we can easily understand or differentiate it from other parameters or other variables you are using. And while declaring a function name, you just can follow the same rules that we have discussed while we are discussing identifiers. You can follow the same naming rules while you are defining a function. Simply, your function should start with the def keyword. Did he join? No. Your function should start with a def keyword with a function name, and the function might have some parameters inside the parenthesis. These small brackets we called as parenthesis, and the function should end with a colon. After colon, you can write whatever the statements you just want to write in using some space. Whenever you use a colon, it automatically gives indentation. In Python, let me say I have taken a tab space, and all the lines under this function should be with some indentation. Like it should be with some space. You should follow some spaced indentation. Yeah, he's back. Okay, he's here. I'll just recap. A function is a block of code where the function can perform some specific task that which you define. Simple. For whatever the function or whatever the program it is, you can write that program using functions, which makes your task simpler. To start a function, first of all, what we need to do is we need to start our function with a keyword called as def, which means definition. And you need to mention a function name followed by some parameters which you wanted to perform some operations. Parameters are nothing but the variables which you pass them inside a function. When you are passing some variables inside a function, that means inside this parenthesis, you just call them as parameters, and then in the statements you just perform some arithmetic or any other operations on the variables you have passed or on the parameters you have passed into your function. If I just show you an example, if you are interested to calculate addition of two numbers, what you do, you just take a input of first variable and the input of second variable and just to do addition. If I say first two numbers are a and b, like 1 and 2, and what you do is you just perform addition. Some s is equal to a plus b and just print it. But when you are using function, it specifically defines a function like sum. Here I am using a keyword called as def, and I am naming my function to be sum, and I am passing two parameters a and b, and I am using a colon. So when I enter into the next line, it automatically gives a indentation. Here what I am performing is, in the parameters that I have passed into my function, I am adding them and I am just printing them. There is only one additional line that you have added here for your addition program. That is, you are defining your addition program in a function. Simple. So normally when you want to perform the following operation for multiple times, what you do is, you don't keep adding the numbers again and again. What you just do is, you can just use that function. I'll say when, how can you call or when can you call a function in the next example. But as of now, this is just for an example. It is how you define a function. First, you use a keyword, you use a name for your function and pass the parameters into your function, use a colon and indentation. This is how you define a function. And if I just run for this, it does nothing. It does nothing because I haven't called the function. For this function to execute something or to perform some operation, what it need to be done is, the function should be called. What do we mean by function call? See, if I say here I have defined a function, but I didn't use this function anywhere in my program. I have just given a definition for a some program. What my function does is, it just adds two numbers or two parameters that I have passed into my function. So the function definition is over. What is our next task? Our next task is to use this sum function that we have defined. Okay, if we just see it in the factorial program, we have used a keyword called as factorial. Math.factorial of some number. If you give math.factorial of 5, it just gives us the factorial of 5. So the factorial, whatever the keyword factorial, it is already written with some block of code in the Python package itself. So what's happening when we use a keyword like factorial, what it does is, it takes input 5 as its parameter, and internally what it does is, the factorial program runs and gives us the output. That is a inbuilt function. That's what we call the inbuilt function. When we are using some keywords and run our program, whenever the keywords are already present in our Python packages, then we call them as inbuilt functions. Here I have defined a function. So it is, here we are defining our function of our own. It is not an inbuilt package. Even though it is not an inbuilt package, you can directly use this sum function in our program. Like if I say, again I am using the same example. Here what I did is, I have just defined my function. Up to this point, my function definition is over. Up to this point, my function definition is over. Here I am starting my function definition, followed by a function name and passing some parameters with a column and performing some operation like addition. I am just printing its value. Now I need to use this function, this block of code. As function is a block of code, I need to use this block of code in my program. Now here I am starting my program. Let me say I am calling this function. If you are specifying function name and also giving some parameters, like here as you are doing addition, let us just give 1 and 2 and just run this program. It gives us an output like sum of two numbers is 3. What is happening when I have called this function? You will be calling your function in this fashion. Like you need to specify your function name and pass the parameters. So what happens? This 1 and 2 just directly jumps into this definition. So now A will be assigned with value 1 and B will be assigned with value 2, and it is performing addition and it's printing the S value. This is how you call a function. I'll just read whatever is written there. Once we have defined a function, we can call it from another function or program or even from the Python prompt. To call a function, we simply type the function name with appropriate parameters. This is how we call a function, with its name and its appropriate parameters. As we have defined our function to be with only 2 parameters, I am giving my input also as 2 parameters. And if you just run for it and it just executes. So in the function definition, provides the information about, it is saying something related to this function. What does it provides? It provides information about the function name. It is having some function name, parameters are a and b, and the definition, what operation is to be performed. Here I am performing addition. This is the operation is being performed. So our function definition provides a function name, parameters, and function definition, as well as it will have some return value, which we will see later. This is how you define a function and call a function. So here, as I have passed only 2 inputs, 2 parameters, I have given only 2 parameters as the input. Let me extend this function to C also and add this C value also here. I have just changed the number of parameters in my function definition and as well as in the statements. And now if I run for the program, you just see it gives me an error. Error is some function is missing one required positional argument C. In the definition, I have given a additional parameter also, but while calling the function, I am not giving the additional parameter. I have just given 2 parameters. So what is this saying? It is giving us an error. And if you also define the third variable, I mean, if you also pass the third variable, what it does is it just jumps into the function definition, perform the code which is written under the function definition and gives us the output. This is about function. This is how you write functions. If we just see another program, here what I am doing is, it is some other program. Here previously I have passed some parameters to my function, but here what I am doing is I am not passing any parameters. I am leaving them blank. So whenever you are defining a function, you can use either parameters or you need not to use parameters. It depends on the usage. Here, as I am interested to just print a few things, I didn't use any parameters. As here I am interested to calculate the addition, I have used parameters and passed the values. In this example, if you see, I am using a def keyword and I am giving a function name and there are no arguments or parameters and I am using a colon. What I am doing here is I am just printing 2 statements, print of something I have written. I am working on it. Next print of, let you know once I finish it off. Something I have just written something. Now here what I am doing is, here I am calling the function which is called as message. Let us see what happens if you don't call. Actually, if you use print statement, what it should do, it should print. But as we have defined them in a function and the function is not called, it does not print. If you call the function, then what happens is the function, when you are calling this function, it directly jumps into the block of code and it executes whatever you have written there. It's just you are printing 2 statements. That's it. So this is the output. In the definition, I have told what, where it is. Once we have defined a function, we can call it from another function. Here I have mentioned something like another function. Let us see example for 2 functions. Here I am going to define 2 functions in which I am going to call one function in another function. If I say I am going to create a main function and in the main function, and I'm also going to create a function called as message, and in my main function I am calling this message function. Here I am calling that message function and at the end I am calling my main function. Let us just see the flow of execution for this program. If you just see, first what I am doing is, let me say first I have defined a function called as message with no parameters. I am just printing 2 statements. Next what I did is I have created another function with name main. Here also I didn't pass any parameters. What I am doing is I am printing one line, print I have a message for you. Next what I am doing is I am calling the function called as message, which I have defined here. What happens when I call these functions? this directly jumps to the function message block. In this block, we are having two statements written already. And after printing the statements, what happens? It just goes back to the main function. Here we are having print goodbye and the program ends. So we have called message function in our main function block. So to run this program, what we need to do is we need to call our main function, main program also. But without calling main function, if I see, there will not be any output. And if I call for my main function, what happens is, first of all, I'm calling the function. What happens? The following block of code, the flow of execution starts from here. And this is the main point. Even though you have defined your function initially, what happens is it doesn't execute, it just interprets the message and keep it safer. And our program starts from the following line. Our program starts from here. First of all, this will be treated as the main or first step to execute. What happens is the following main function is executed. After this main is executed, what happens is it just goes back to our main function. Here main function, what I am doing, I am just printing a statement. Our first output will be, I have a message for you. This will be our first output. Next, what happens? It will goes to the next line. In the next line, I am calling another function called as message. What happens? It directly jumps into the message function. In this message function, I am having two print statements, and these two print statements will be printed. And after completing this message function, what happens is it again jumps to the previous main function and it prints the value called as goodbye, and all the process is completed and the program ends. If you see the output, first it is having, I have a message for you. This statement is printed, and next it is going into this message function. In the message function, these two statements are printed. I am working on it. Shall let you know once I finish it off. And after printing these two statements, it is going back to the main function, that is printing a goodbye. And goodbye, after this, no other line to execute. So the program ended. This is how you define two functions and call one function in another function. Is it a bit confusing?
So I have one doubt.
Yes.
So here first it printing the main function, right? I have a message for you.
Yes.
So after that, how it was going for the message function.
Yes,
So when
it is
it is going for the message, why it was not taking from the goodbye? Why it was coming down, and why it
See,
was?
whenever we write a program, what happens? Our program starts executing from the first line. Okay. But coming to the functions, as these are some special block of codes, first we need to call them. So our program starts execution from here, from this point. That is first thing you need to remember. Next, what happens is it starts its execution in a sequential manner. First of all, it sees its first line. What is in the first line? We are printing some message. Next, it goes to second line. In the second line, what we are having, the message function itself is called in the main function. So whenever this function is called, what it should happen, it directly jumps into the message. After printing these statements, again it goes back to the main function and prints goodbye. If I move this statement before this message, what happens? It first prints goodbye. After that, we'll get messages. After that, it goes to message function and print these two statements. Did you see here? It follows a flow of execution line by line. It comes line by line.
Okay. Now the goodbye, if you bring it down to the message function, shall I let you know after the finish it off? After this, not there in the second function.
Here?
Yeah. After finish the shall I let
okay,
you
here
know?
I should keep.
Yeah. After that, yeah.
What it happens? It will be in the same manner. There is an indentation here. Okay. First of all, I have a message for you is printed. Next, I am working on it. Shall let you know once it is finished. Goodbye. This is how it works.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So in the program that you have written for factorial, what he did, he defined a function. He gave a name for the factorial function, and he's passing a parameter called n, right? And Under that, he is performing some operation and giving a result. When you use these functions, the syntax or logic will be clear for you while understanding the program. So
Okay.
these functions makes our task easier when we are having some multiple executions. If I say some multiple logics to be performed in our function, and we might get confused to write a whole code in a single file. At that time, what we do is we just divide our program into some multiple blocks called as functions and write them. Like I have did it here. Here I have divided my function into two parts, even though this is a small program, but just to make you understand, I have written this. So what we do is let me just write it in a different manner. Okay, what shall we do? I'll just try to modify this program in another line. Okay, so that I can give you some intuition. I'll define some function like hello. I have created a function called hello, and I am not passing any parameters to my function. What I do is I will create another variable n is equal to, and I'll leave it blank. And what I do is print is equal to let me say hello, comma, that n. I'll print that n value. This is how the function is over. Next, I'm defining another function called name. In this name, what I pass is I'll pass some value a, and here I define a is equal to some, what if some name. If I give some name, and I'll just try to call my hello function. Before that, actually you need to know something about return statement so that I can return some value. Rather than that, I'll just show you that in a different manner. How shall we just do that? I'll just do the print statement here. Actually, I'm not getting the logic, but okay, let us see. I'm having a name. Let me say a is equal to some name here. And in this program, I will print something. Hello. And here I will call my hello function. Hello of a. If I pass some parameter, let me say I pass some parameter t. Here, if I define my function t with some other name. No, it's a bit confusing. 1 minute. So actually, what I'm interested is I need to take a parameter as input. For that, I need a return statement. I'll just explain the return statement and I'll just go back to the example so that it will be clear. So return statement is something that which says your definition to end your function there itself and go back to the place from where it was called. Like, just let us see the previous example only. Here I am defining a function called sum and I am passing two parameters a and b, and I am performing addition. If you see in the previous example, here in the function definition itself, I have printed its sum. But here what I am doing is I am not printing the statements in the definition, but I'll print that sum in my program, not in the function, but in my remaining program. So what I am doing is I am returning some value. Here what happens is whenever you call for a function, the following what are the following statements are written in this function will be executed. And if you are interested to return its output. So this following function is having some output, like it is performing some addition. And if you are interested to pass this s, and I mean the output, to some other variable, like here what I am interested to do is I am interested to assign the addition value to c. So what I am doing is here I am returning my parameter s, that means the operation which is performed here and the value is stored in s. I am going to get this s value into the c variable. Here I did not define any value for c, but what I am doing is I am initializing c is equal to sum of 1 comma 2. So what happens, this sum function directly jumps into the definition, this block of code, and performs addition and returns the value for this addition. So whenever you return some value from this function, what happens, it will be assigned to a variable called c and prints the value. This is how the program works. If I similarly discuss another program, I'll just say, okay, let us see this example also. Here what I am doing is I am going to define a function like absolute value, and I am going to take a single parameter as my input. Here what I am interested to do is, if I give a positive number, it should just return the same number, and if I give a negative number, I need to convert it into positive number and just print that. If you just see, I have given my input as number. The function parameter is a number. What happening is, if the number is greater than or equal to 0, what happens, it directly returns the num value. That means if you are using print of and calling the function inside the print statement, we can also call our functions inside a print statement. I'm calling the function with its function name and passing a parameter like 2. What happens, 2 will be goes to this num will be assigned with a value called 2, and as 2 is greater than or equal to 0, what happening, the value num is being return num. Again the 2 value is being returned to this print statement, and it will be printed. If I pass my parameter as -4, what happens, the number will be assigned with -4 as its input, and if it checks whether the given number is greater than or equal to 0, as this condition fails, what happens, it just goes to the else block. Here what we are doing, here we are doing minus num, I mean we are returning minus num. What happens, minus of -4, what happens, it will become +4. So when we print for that function, it will gives us the output 4. So if I just show you what I did in my previous function, I'm interested to print my name here with hello in one function and print in my name in the other function, right? I have written hello here, and I will pass a parameter to this function. Let me say my function should return some other name. I'll say my n is equal to, I'll create a function in the bottom. Now I'll create a function called def with name as its function name. I just don't pass any parameter here. I will just define s is equal to Neeraj, and when I call this function, what I am doing is I am just returning that s value. So my s will be stored with the name Neeraj, and I am returning that s value. If I call this function anywhere, something like I'll call my function here name of. So what happens, s value is returned. So the s value will be assigned to variable called as n. And if I print for n value here, it just prints me the output. Here, after defining two functions, I need to call the hello function, right? So what I will do is I'll just call my hello function, and if I run the program, hello is not defined. Capital H. Yeah, I have used called capital H. See, it gave me the output like hello Neeraj. So here what I am doing is I am taking one input in one function, and the following functions output I am returning it to the other function. Here what I am performing is hello. I am printing hello with the name assigned in this function Neeraj. Did you understand this?
Can you explain it again, bro?
This again. Here
Yeah.
I will take in fashion of input. So you just see, first I am defining a function called name. Let us say, first of all, I have defined a function called name. In name, what I am doing is I am going to take some input. Okay. and whatever the input I got, I am just returning it. I mean, what does return mean? Whatever your program output will be, that will be returned to this S value, and wherever you call the function and assign some variable to it, that output will be stored in the variable which we have assigned while we are calling a function. Here initially I have declared a function called as name, and I am just taking some input. I am returning that input. Where I am returning this input? To the calling function. Here I am defining another function called as hello, and I'm calling a function called as name here, and the output of this name function will be stored into this n value. What I am doing is I am printing hello comma name. What happens as name n will be assigned with some name which I give as input. It prints that name. Let me say if I run this program for again, it asks for input. I'll give your name and just enter. What it is doing, it is saying hello Akshay. What is happening? In one function I am taking an input, I am passing that input to another function. So when you are passing that into another function, it should be holded in some variable, right? So I am using n as a variable, and I am storing this names output to my n variable, and I am using this n variable to print your name. Like means it is a greeting message. Is it okay?
Yeah, bro.
Yes. As I have mentioned previously, what happens is, first of all, what it checks is, it checks for our function calling. Here function name, what I am doing here is, here I am calling for a function. First this line will be executed. After this, what it does is, it goes back to the function definition and perform the operations which are defined in the function. After completing these functions, what happens is, it just get back into our normal execution flow and execute the statements which are below this line. It is just like a flow chart, but not exactly flow chart. It is the function working. Now let me just explain you the program for a perfect number. So when you call for a number to be a perfect number is, whenever the factors of that number sums up to itself. Let me say if I take 6, 6 is having factors as 1, 2 and 3, not including the factor itself. 6 itself is a factor of 6, but 6 should not be included. It gives us a result as 6. 1 plus 2 plus 3, 6. First thing is, let us write a program for factors. For I in range of, let me say I take 10, 0, not from 0, from 1. What I do is, I'll check for condition. If one number is a factor, then what it means, it gives the remainder as 0. So what we will be doing is, we will just check for 10 modulo I. If 10 modulo I is equal to 0, what I will just do is, I will print its value. Like I'll just print I. If I just run this program, what happens? It is printing the factors of 10. The factors of 10 are 1, 2 and 5. 10 is also factor of 10, that means itself, but we are not interested about that 10, but we are only interested up to the values below 10. So this is how you find factors. Whenever you find factors of a number, and if you add those factors, if that result to the same number, like if I give 6 here and check for it factors, the factors will be 1, 2 and 3. If you add all these 3 numbers, again it results the given input itself. Here 6 is the number that which we are checking for factors, as 1, 2, 3 are the factors. If you sum them, what happens? It again equals to the given number itself. So whenever the factors below a given number sums up to the number itself, then we call that number to be a perfect number. And examples for perfect number are 6, 28, 496, 828 and so on. So To check whether the given number is a perfect number or not, what we need to do is, first of all, we need to find the factors of that number and add them. Simple. In the reverse program also, what we did, first of all, we have finded some remainder and we have added it to our sum and we have divided that number. Only that 3 steps are important in that reverse of a number program. And I have also asked you to do palindrome program. I am not sure whether you did it or not. It just adding 2 statements for that palindrome. However, here I'll just explain you the perfect number code using functions. So first of all, what I am doing is I am defining a function called as perfect number and I am passing a parameter to the function. Let us say it is n and I am initializing a variable called as 0. Now what I am doing is I am running a for loop as I have just did it here. What I am doing for x in range of 1 comma n, this n will be the given input. If n modulo x is equal to 0, the same for loop I have written here. And if it is 0, what I am doing is I am adding that value to my already initialized variable called as sum, and I am returning what I am returning here. I am returning the Boolean expression. Let me say, you might just confuse. I am returning some sum. Let me say I have returned some sum and I will just take a input here itself. I'll take n is equal to input of, right, it should be an integer, right? I'll take an input here and pass that to my n. Before that, what I do is I will assign this function to another variable called as a. What I am doing, I am taking a. So if you just observe here, I am returning the sum. And if I show you the output, you can just see. Let us first print n value. N is equal to n. First of all, I am printing n value. Next, what I am doing is a has no value, but after seeing this, a will get some value. After performing the function, we will have some value for this a. Let us just see what is that value also. A equal to comma a. Okay, and we just run the program. It asks for input, and if I enter 6, what is happening? I have given an input as 6 and I have also got the a value to be 6. So how did I get this a value to be 6 is I'm calling a function called a perfect number, initialize with a parameter called n. I have given n as 6. What happens? First of all, it takes an input. Next, it prints the n value. Next, it goes to the a line. Here I am calling a function. It directly jumps into the function block of code. What I am performing here, I am checking whether the given number is a perfect or not. And after checking for the condition, I will get some sum. And I am returning this sum to the variable called as a. And this a stores the sum value. As here the sum is 6, the variable a stored 6. If I just change my input to 10, it should be 8. 5 plus 2 plus 1, 8. If you see in the previous example, the factors of 10 are 1, 2 and 5. 1 plus 2 plus 5, it is 8. So here you have just returned the sum. But what you need to do is, after getting some output, here what I need to do, if my given input n is equal to a, then I should print the given number is a perfect number. Perfect number. Else you just print not a perfect number. Not a perfect number. Now I will give 10 as my input. It just shows it is not a perfect number because a is not equal to n. And if I run the program for once again and give 28 as input, as 28 is a perfect number, it returns it to be a perfect number. That's it. This is how you check whether the given number is a perfect number or not. But in my previous program, if you just observe, I have used some logic there. I will explain that logic now. What I did is previously I have returned sum equal to n. What does it mean? I'll just call the function perfect number and I'll just print for it out for its output perfect number of 6. And if I just run the program, it is giving me true. What it means? True means the given number is a perfect number. How am I returning this? How am I getting this true value? Is because here I am checking for a condition. As I am using double equal to symbol, what happens? This sum is checked against this n. What is here? What we are doing is we are checking for a condition. Is sum equal to n or not? If the following thing is true, then what happens? Our output will be true. If at all the sum is not equal to n, it gives us the output to be false. So this is how I have written in the previously, but I have just modified for you to understand this. This is how you write perfect number, or you can use just this block of code to know whether the given number is a perfect number or not. This is how you write for a perfect number. Now let us did you understand the perfect number example? How to write it? Using definitions, I mean using functions. Having doubt?
No, sir. I understand.
Okay. I'll just explain this Fibonacci series and we'll end our class for today. Are you aware of this Fibonacci series? Do you know the
Yes, sir.
Fibonacci series?
Yes, sir.
All? Every one of you know it?
Yes, sir.
No. Fibonacci series is nothing but it initially starts with 0 and it does nothing with that 0. What happens is next initially we'll be having two values like 0 and 1. Next what it do is it perform addition with the previous two numbers. What it do is 0 plus 1, it gives us the output to be 1. Now what it do is it will add the next two numbers 1 plus 1 2. Now it adds 2 plus 1 3. Now 2 plus 3 5 and 3 plus 5 8 and 5 plus 3 13 and 13 plus 8 21. This is what we call as Fibonacci series. The previous two numbers are added to result in a new output. Okay.
Okay, bro.
This is what we call as a Fibonacci series. So to print those Fibonacci series up to a given integer n, let me say I have a given input as 6. It should print first 6 Fibonacci series digits. So elements 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5 are the first 6 numbers in Fibonacci series. If I give 7 as my input, it should print up to 8. If I give 9 as my input, it should print up to 21. This is how our program will be defined now. So initially what we need to do is we need to take a input and convert it to an integer. Convert into integer. Initially as 0 and 1 are already predefined and there is no logic for those two. What we do is we just declare two variables a is equal to 0 and b is equal to 1. And what we do is perform some operation that is called as addition. And I have just declared a variable called as sum is equal to 0. And I have also declared another variable called as count. This count is for terminating the program. Let me say if I given an input as 6 and I'll keep increasing my count value as I am using for loop here. I have initialized an extra variable. It is like I or j we use in our for loop and iterable. Let me use count here and check for a condition in while loop. First of all, what I am printing is print the Fibonacci series and I am giving a space here. So what it does is it just prints the following line and it enters into the while loop. Here what I am checking is I'm checking whether the given count did the count reach to n value or not. This is a condition so that our loop will run for only n times. Here our loop will be run for 6 times. When my count will become equal to 6, then the program will be stopped. This is the conditional statement count less than or equal to n. What I am doing is first of all I am printing this sum value. As initially sum is 0, the sum 0 is printed. what I am doing is incrementing the count and I am performing the logic for this Fibonacci series. What happens? A value become B. That means what I am doing, I am assigning this A with previous B value. So A is assigned with the B value and B is assigned with previous value. What is the previous value? 0. P is assigned with some value and here I am doing addition and sum is equal to A plus B. Again it goes to while loop. It checks for condition. If condition is true, what happens? It's print some variable. Again we have got sum to be 1. So it prints 1 and just the following loop executes in that manner. Let me say, as it is initially 0 and 1, you might not understand. Let us take it as initially printed 0 1 1. Okay, so now my sum value is to be 1. Sum is 1. Let us say sum is 1 and count has some value. So A is equal to B. When will this sum be 1? Previously when A and B are assigned with 0 values, it will be 1. What I am doing is I am just manipulating the variables here itself. What I am doing is I am giving this A value with the previous B value and giving my B value to be a new value. Here I am initializing my B to be the addition of previous two numbers, that is called as sum. And again I am performing the addition operation between these two assigned variables. If I say, I'll take a text editor. Initially I am having A is equal to 0, B is equal to 1. What it is doing is, and sum is equal to 0. Initially we will print a sum which is equal to 0. Next what we do is we will assign the value B to A. Now A is equal to B, which is equal to 1. Previously as B is equal to 1, now A is also assigned with value called as 1. And next what I am doing, I am assigning B with a value called as sum. Now B is assigned with a value called as sum. The sum value is 0. The sum value is 0. Next what I am doing, I am doing sum is equal to A plus B. So here my A plus B values are 1 plus 0. Now what will be the sum value? Sum value will be 1. So next what I am doing, again I am going into the for loop, sorry, while loop. I am printing my sum value. So initially 0 is printed. In this position 0 is printed and next our sum has become 1. So 1 will be printed. Next what happens? Now the values of these parameters are changed. What are the values? A is assigned as 1, B was 0 and sum was 1. I'll just write them in a new line. This is what we perform again. What happening is, now if we check for the updated A value, it is 1, updated B value is 0 and the sum value is 1. If you just see in the next line, what we are doing, we are having our sum value to be 1 and I am changing the A's value. Now what happens to this A value? It will be assigned with a B value which is equal to 0 and our B will be assigned with a value called as sum. Okay, now we are having B as 1. If I just perform addition, 0 plus 1, we have just got the output to be, here the output will be 0 comma 1 and in the next iteration our output will be 0 comma 1 comma 1 and as our sum became 1. Now if I check for values again, my A value, what will happen to my A value? Again it will be 0, it is 1 and our sum is 1. And again I am assigning our A value to be 1 and B value to be sum. If I perform addition, it will become 2 and our series will be 0 1 1 2. This is how it just do the execution, first iteration, second iteration, third iteration, and it does the iterations up to 6 times and we just get the following values. Is it okay? Is that okay?
Okay, sir, it's clear.
Okay, fine.
sir.
What's up? You're having any doubt how that happened? Hello.
No doubt, sir. I
Okay,
have
okay,
told.
fine. Fine. And yesterday I have asked you people to do a program for strong number, right? This is the program for that strong number. If you just haven't done, just check it. Here I'm going to take a input. I'm initializing a variable called as sum, and I'm iterating some while loop, and finally printing the sum value. So if you just see what I'm doing, yesterday I have used a space in between this n and not equal to operator, so it gave me error. So I should not use any space. That is a mistake I have did yesterday. After class I have just found that. And a reminder, what I'm doing is I'm going to take the reminder. I'll say it with an example. I have taken 1, 2, 3 as my input. When I perform the following operation, my R value is equal to 3. Now what it does is sum is equal to sum, means sum is equal to 0 plus math dot factorial of R. I mean factorial of 3. What will be the factorial of 3? It will be 6. So 6 will be stored into this sum value. Let us print the sum value also. Okay. If you just observe the sum value, then you might get some clarity. What I gave the input to be. I need to give some input like 1, 2, 3. So what is happening here? You just see initially that I have printed some value. So what will be the sum value? Sum is 6. This is in the first iteration. Here what I am doing is I am dividing that number 1, 2, 3. It is a floor division 1, 2, 3 divided by 10, which gives me 12 as the output. Now again it just goes to the while loop and checks for the condition. This n is not equal to 0. What happens? Again it does the remainder operation. 12 modulo 10. It results 2. I'm performing and 2 factorial here and adding it to the sum. What happens? 6 plus 2 factorial. 6 plus 2 factorial, it is 6 plus 2. So it is 8. And similarly, it will do for 1 also. It will calculate 1 factorial. It is 1. 1 is added to 8. It is 9. So the final result is our sum, which is the 9. This is how the factorial program works. And this is how you can check whether the given number is a strong number or not. If you just check for 148 as 145 is a strong number, the output is also 145 again. Such numbers we call as strong numbers. And I would like to stop our class for now. But did you understand this strong number program? It's just a logic, nothing in that. Any doubts?
No, sir.